Hey, it's Chris, Liege of Games. So today we're talking a little bit about the crowdfunding game Isle of Trains, all aboard. Crowdfunding at the very end here on Kickstarter, drawn to games, engine building, literally and figuratively speaking here. What do you need to know? Is it right for you? And should you be backing it? Let's talk. So this is an interesting deck builder that ranges anywhere from 1 to 4 players, where you're essentially literally building the engine as you go in terms of the train pieces, as well as the mechanisms that are going to allow you to build more and deliver more in the first place. Less of a pick up and deliver and more of a resource utilization to deliver victory points in that sense. Let me give you a little bit of the overview of things, and then let me go into my final thoughts. So here you just have kind of the basic setup of what the board looks like. You have your 6 different island areas, and they each have their corresponding locations and passenger rewards based on where they're at, which are actually variable. So I think you can put these in any combination. So we'll talk about that in a second and why that's a nice thing. You have your market up here of the 3 cards that are going to be constantly refreshed. And then you have your starting train down here, which is just your starting one that you start off with. A little bit of a breakdown of the card here. This is the victory points at the end, you can see. And then you have how much it costs, the cargo that it has, how much the engine can pull, because other cards, as you'll see here, will have red that will have, okay, you can only carry 4 total, so this would be 2 of the 4 I can take. Then you have the cargo on this side as well that it can hold behind it. And then what happens if a passenger is loaded into this engine? If a passenger is loaded in, it has a capacity of just 1 passenger, and then you would draw 2 cards. And so you're going to be playing your cards here. You have the ability to do several different things on your turn. The first is, well, just get cards. And so you can either take the top card from the pile, or you can draft 1 from the market, and you get 2 actions on every single one of your turns. So that's the first action. The second action is just to build. But how do you build in the first place, right? So you start out with a hand of 5 different cards, and you're looking through them, and they all have different victory points and different costs in the corners. 6, 6, 6, 6, 3. I obviously did a great job shuffling here, and you can see you have cabooses, boxcars, engine, and hopper. And so those are going to be upgradable. So if you wanted to replace my level 1 engine with my level 3 engine, well, I could place it right here, but you have to pay the cost difference. So in this case, it would be a 6 cost difference. Now, however, if it was a level 2 engine, which I happen to have right down here, the cost is actually only 3. But so then how do you pay for that then? Well, you look at your hand and you have to discard 3 cards to pay for the difference or the cost in general. And now you can see that my card is 6, and this is still the same, but the victory points have now increased from 0 to 2 there. And instead of being only a cargo of all 3, which is benefit of a level 1, you have just that in the corner now. So it's going to change how you do that. You'll also notice that in the upper right-hand corner, there's one last aspect of these cards, that you get whatever is in the upper right-hand corner when you build it. So I would get a passenger, which you are randomly drawing from a bag like this, shaking it up, drafting more than 1 apparently. He was just excited to escape, but you're drafting this and setting it aside your engine. So when you put them in the engine, you put them just right on top. That is one of your other actions that you can do. That is the third action, is putting passengers or putting cargo in where they need to go. The last one is going to one of these locations and achieving the primary objectives. Now I have these actually all flipped on the wrong side, but if we take a minute for camera magic here, you can now see that all of these location cards, all 6 of them, 7 in a 4-player game, are going to have 3 different things on the front. This is a primary objective. So if you meet that primary objective via what's on the cargo of your train, you can go there and then grab this location card and you put it next to your train. Then you can achieve one of these secondary objectives on a later turn. And this versus this, depending on which one you want and how your resources are spread out. And then that one is going to give you 14 points. This one's going to give you 10. If you only do the primary, you're only going to get 7. When you achieve one of these, you flip it over and you have whichever one was achieved, you slot it under to let you know how many victory points it actually was. Now, I'm not sure if this is a typo or not. You see 17 and 21 on this side, but you only see 14 and 10 on this side. So I think that that's just something that I'm not understanding yet, but either way, that's kind of how you do it in that sense. Now, when you go there and you deliver these goods, you also have several other things that you can be delivering. You can deliver passengers, and you have to deliver passengers. If this is Camp Eagle, you have to deliver passengers to Camp Eagle. And so what you do is you place all of your meeples. So if I had a bunch of meeples right there, I take one of them and I put it on the first open slot next to Camp Eagle's little passenger thing, and it tells you the bonus that you get. I get 2 cards and I get 1 extra build action this turn. And so this has 3 victory points and 2 cards. This has just victory points. Then you get cards and victory points, and cards plus load actions there. So you get to change how you want to do things. Now, the interesting thing with this is, for this to be achieved, you actually have to go and place one of your meeples on somebody else's train. And so you have to be utilizing other people's trains to really get the full maximum advantage of utilizing the passengers to get the bonuses. Because you'll notice that in my hand previously, I said, okay, like this level 3 engine is 6. But when you start looking at these other cards, the 6 of the hopper there, 6 of the engine, 6 of the box cart, and there's 7s and 8s even. Well, how do you get that high? Because at the end of every turn, I didn't mention this, you have to discard down to 5 cards. Well, some of these cards at the top will actually allow you to draw significantly more cards. So if you get this one right here, the level 2 box cart, if you can get this out, you draw 4 cards if you hook up anything with boxes, cargo-wise, after it. So if you did that as your first action, all of a sudden you'd have 4 cards in your hand, and if you started the hand with 4 or 5 cards already, then you could be looking at 8 cards in your hand, then you can pay for something that's more expensive. Now, the last aspect of this that I didn't really talk about that's up here in the marketplace is a building card. And these building cards, again, have different attributes, they have different strengths, and you can draft them. You can only have 1 built, though, and they give you whatever bonuses at the top. Now, this is the easiest one because it just has victory points. The other cards out here may have other aspects. We'll see if we can find one here in the middle of the deck. Obviously, the cards are going to work well with me. So for each passenger at the end, you get 2 victory points, and they give you a variety of other ones that you can do as well. For this one, for example, you get 4 victory points base, and then any objective that you have at Camp Eagle or Flint Beach, you get an extra victory point. And so they all just vary that way. And you have just a whole sets of hoppers and all the other types of cars. You can only have 1 engine, if I can actually find it, 1 engine on your train, which makes sense, but you can have unlimited number of other things, including cabooses. There's no limit to how big your caboose can be. Now, the last thing you're going, okay, Chris, well, you said everything except for when the game ends. Well, the game ends if this draw pile ever runs out, then the game ends. Or you're moving this little, and it's a train token in the actual game, along these tracks. And anytime one of these island pieces is taken, so I take it and I bring it over here by completing an objective, right? Then it gets moved 1 space here. And if it gets all the way down here for 4 people, 5 is 3 players, 4 is 2 players. So for 2 players to end the game, they each only have to do a primary and a secondary objective once. And that's not a long game in that sense, with how quickly you can engine build and how fast the turns are going to go, because you're going to be drawing, playing, loading. So there you go. That is Isle of Trains All Aboard in a nutshell. Let's go to my final thoughts. So what did I like about this game? Probably the biggest benefit is the fact that despite being an engine builder, it does not overstay its welcome. You can play an easy 2-player game in about like 20 minutes. You can play a 4-player game probably in 45. The most unique aspect of it is the loading aspect, because the loading really only is beneficial if you're loading other people's trains, which creates quite the dilemma of the yin and yang. The only way to really get the significant number of cards you need sometimes to be buying these big spenders of 7, 8, 9 that you'll run into for the train pieces is to get that as your first action on someone else's train. So the opportunity strike cost here is quite high in terms of timing and tactical nature. At the same time, one of the other aspects I liked is grabbing those pieces of the islands, taking them as your own, and not only fulfilling the primary contract, but then the secondary contract that's going to go along with it to determine the victory points that it's going to give you at the end. What may you not like if you're looking at this game as an engine builder? Well, it can be very frustrating at times. You have this style of deck that you are just drawing the top of or from a 3-card market. And you get the potential to draw cards that you're not going to be able to play anytime soon. I've had significant streaks where all I had was 5 or higher value cards in terms of costs. And that makes it very prohibitive to do anything else, even with other people's utilization of what they're doing on their trains. I mean, it's mitigated a little bit by the fact that you can play significantly on other people's, but also it's, a little bit frustrating in that sense. The management of the train and the cargo during the deliver phase just needs more clarification on the rules. Do I do this, then do this? Do I lose these? What do I do with these here? Just a little bit of clarity needs to be delivered in that sense. And I wonder if it's almost doing a little bit too much, right? It's less about optimization of the cargo at the bottom of the cards and more just saying, well, I'm just going to pile it in because I'm going to get rewarded for the passengers. I'm going to get rewarded for the cargo. I'm going to get rewarded for the extras. And so I don't really need to worry of having the exact amount because it's just going to be left over and giving me more cards or giving me more victory points or whatever it may be from that aspect, where other engine builders might not be as lax in their rewards in that sense, where if you do not optimize to the most certain degree, then you're just going to lose those resources and it's not going to be as efficient, therefore leading you to potentially be behind your opponents who might be able to eke it out a little bit more efficiently. The other thing I have a little bit of a mixed feeling on is the upgrades. We talk about building the upgrades in terms of the cabooses, the engines, the coaches, whatever it may be. But I found that we were really only, and maybe this is our fault more than anything else, is how important is that? We found ourselves upgrading the engine the most because you need that obviously to carry the most in terms of the other cargo and, train cars. But we just didn't find ourselves utilizing it in, say, the hopper, the other elements in terms of, say, like the tankers. And we ended up buying those instead for the price because you just don't always have the ease of access of upgrading in some of these. It's just buy it or nothing, again, by the sheer volume of the deck size in that sense. So take it for what you will. So how do I feel about it overall? The incorporation of this much iconography in combination with really only getting the benefit via a strategic nature of loading onto other people's trains, in addition to the different types of delivery that you're trying to think through and manage, despite its shorter playing time, it's a step up from most engine builders that are going to fall in this time frame to begin with. So if that appeals to you as slightly more complex engine building in a sub 1 hour gameplay, even up to 4 people, this should be interesting to you. At the same time, I just didn't feel the connection with this one as I have with several others. I mean, when I look at engine builders, I look at something like Res Arcana, which is my gold standard nowadays. And so compared to that, I didn't feel compelled in that sense. But don't be fooled at the same time. It's doing things differently enough that you could easily have this in your collection aside from it because of the balancing of the weight via the engines and the loading into other people's. Because, I mean, you're having some take that in some of these other engine builders, but you're not having as much help that in the other engine builders that this requires you to do. And the end game really can go rather quickly as well, sort of similarly to Res Arcana in that sense, because you're moving the little track token along, and in lower player counts, it does not take a lot to get there if you are really going cargo heavy. So take that for what you will. Drawn to Games, thank you for sending me this prototype so I could talk about it. Check it out on Kickstarter. Link is down below if you're interested. As always, thanks for watching though. I'll see you around. Stay classy.